Shut up and sit down.
Cairns is Queensland's 5th most populated city with a similar size to Townsville, and is Australia's 4th most populated destination for international tourists. With its wonderful natural surrounds, its economy is primarily based on tourism and supports a large retirement population. It's a very pretty city nestled in the foothills of the Howdy National Park ranges and still maintains a very green, leafy rainforest feel. Its large paperback trees single back to its swampy coastal origins. It has ideal access to the Great Barrier Reef and is protected position from the cyclones which predominantly come from the northwest in the southern hemisphere. The climate around the Greater Cairns area, including the Atherton Tablelands and the Mareeba, is unique to this part of the coastline and changes wildly only a few hundred kilometres away in places like Lakeland. Cairns used to have the position of being the most northern town in Queensland on the bitumen. Now Cooktown has that spot and soon will go to Weipa. As such, Cairns used to be the gateway to the tip of Australia, but now it hosts many very clean caravan towing 4x4s. During World War II, Cairns and Brisbane was home to 2 of the largest military bases in Australia. But while places like Brisbane and Townsville there are still sizable monuments to the efforts of both Americans and Australians, here in Cairns many of those artefacts have been swept away. The airport is now run by civilians and the Royal Australian Navy base hosts only smaller sized patrol boats. The only remnants of the American effort still here are the typical American names like Deadman Gully. Cairns is geographically very spread out, and places like Palm Cove and the Northern Beaches is separated from the main CBD by sugarcane farms and the odd cattle yard. Along the coastal strip of the Northern Beaches is a long line of resorts that have all blended into one big resort, although hidden behind the palm trees and without the dense corporate logos of Ali Beach. And behind the line of resorts is the massive designer homes owned by the retirement crowd. It is a very beautiful and comfortable place to live, with price tags too expensive for any family with rugrats. You'll be more likely to be disturbed by someone washing their boat or caravan than the sounds of any kids running down the main street. Coming back down the Peninsula Development Road was a much better experience riding it the second time. I had a much better idea of what to expect and what to avoid. They had further graded the road outside of Weipa, knocking off a majority of the corrugations, and it was only a handful of times that I ended up riding the bucking bull. With a better understanding of the potholes either side of the dips, I made sure to slow right down when coming out of them, as the potholes in the dirt have smoother edges and are much harder to see. Having the more challenging dirt at the beginning of the ride was much better than having it at the end when I was exhausted. I find that most animals are intimidated by the sport's exhaust, and by revving the engine a few times you can scare away most of them, except for the blink and you'll miss it birds that end up as bug splat on the radiator grill. Did you see it? I'll slow it down for you. And this is where my first recorded road call ended up. Just to point out that most of those 4x4 drivers also consider motorcyclists as bug splat. Just watch as they refuse to give way or even slow down. Can you see there's no give way sign on my side? It's on his. And just keep watching as the other 4x4 drivers behind him, they don't even slow down or even give way at all. Getting back to bitumen without dropping the bike was a godsend. I just had to stop and celebrate the moment. It just goes to show that a 700-kilometre trip of dirt is so physically draining, and a potential extra 1,000 kilometres of dirt to the tip of Cape York would have put me into a very bad position over the course of a week. Once the bitumen runs all the way to Weipa, then it'll drop the amount of dirt on a return trip to the tip to about 600 kilometres. Then it would have been possible to try pulling that off in a day. Once back on the bitumen, it reminded me of why I decided to do this trip on a road bike in the beginning. The stress of riding on the dirt was so mentally draining and I wasn't enjoying the experience at all. But now I was riding through the tablelands and the gorgeous downhill ride to the coast. Cairns has a number of hill climbs between the coast and the plateau which are worthy of heritage listing. I was lucky not to get stuck behind anybody on the way down. I managed to get back to the coastline before dark, but once there my arch nemesis of this trip returned. It's hard to believe the difference in the environment between the 800 kilometres had made from the Dust Bowl of Weipa to the rainforest of Cairns. Staying in the leafy green suburb of Clifton Beach, I still haven't met my host. She lives upstairs and looks to have converted her garage into a studio apartment. I feel that this may mean my last bit of civility for a while, and I really regret not staying here for at least 2 weeks in order to recover from the road from Weipa. Heading through the middle of Australia to Darwin should be all on bitumen, and the rain and the cold of the east coast should be replaced by the dust and the heat of the red centre. The gear change between first and second continues getting rougher, and I'm hoping that the service in Darwin will resolve that. The engine is running fine, but I'm still not 100% sure whether I've damaged the bike on the dirt road from Weipa. We're about a third the way through this trip, and we hopefully now there's no more dirt that the bike will make it all the way home. Also, I got notified that I was caught speeding while in Townsville. I guess that someone wants to square me for running that red light. So far, it's the first speeding ticket of this trip. The mobile speed cameras in Queensland are very aggressive. Every time I see a car parked in an unusual spot set a distance from the side of the road, I make sure to slow down. But last night on the way home, I noticed one that was hiding in the shadows beneath the trees. I just keep thinking if it looks too much of a nice car to be dumped, then it's likely a mobile speed camera. Back to big time NBN and 4G. So far the only benefits to dragging around the dish on this journey have been the additional strapping holding onto the panniers. I'm guessing that without all the strapping the metal racks would have given up by now. Cairns has been a real episode in frustration. With limited access to supplies in both Cooktown and Weipa, my disaster plans had me carrying extra protein supplements if I was unable to find enough food. Those supplies have dwindled, and I was looking for replenishments while here in Cairns. But the roads have changed and Google hasn't picked that up yet, sending me in the wrong direction. Once I found the place, they do things like only open for an hour after 9 in the morning, or don't have FPOS facilities, or don't give you a tax receipt. If you're a local and you know all this, you can organise your way around it. But if you're a visitor, you just end up running all around town looking for anyone who sells protein in 500-gram collapsible bags. With the return of rain, Cairns has turned into a week of recovering from the road to Weipa. And sitting here, I'm not sure whether that road is just a small taste of what I'm likely to get on the road to Perth. I'm thinking that there's a lot more to Cairns that I've managed to see in the past week, and that I'm missing huge things like the entire reef and a national park in the mountains. I would like to have preferred to stay an additional week, maybe book a kayaking tour in the reef, or wait for enough sunshine to go hiking in the rainforest. Next stop is Hewingdon, which will be my first inland stop on my journey to the west. It's going to be a new adventure in a town about a quarter the size of Weipa. Cairns gave me the opportunity to catch up with my cousin for the first time in some 25 years. And hopefully now I'm fully prepared for the journey west. So thanks for following my adventures around Australia, and remember to do something to go out there and enjoy your day.